I'm Matt Bishar with NAREITsREIT.com here in Florida for the 2016 NAREIT Leader in the Light Working Forum. Joining me is Lenora Suki, Head of Sustainable Finance Product Strategy with Bloomberg. Lenora, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Now, can you start by telling me a little bit about the current state of public sustainability reporting?
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a really broad range of disclosure practices right now across industries. We're seeing at the very far end very robust disclosure from some companies who are really framing sustainability as part of how they create business value. So they're reporting on quantitative metrics for environmental, social, and governance issues, which are often mandated by regulation. And they're really integrating it into their annual reports, into their regulatory filings. Those companies are really out front. But to be honest, I think the vast majority of companies are still trying to figure out how they should be thinking about public sustainability reporting. And so we still see a lot of companies trying to come to grips with how much to report, who to report to, what issues to report on. So it's still a pretty mixed space. And I think that what we see is that the space is evolving very quickly, partially because of regulatory pressure, partially because of pressure from asset owners like pension funds and foundations. And we're also seeing stock exchanges step into this with new listing requirements. So there's a lot that's changing in the landscape that I think is pushing companies towards more public sustainability reporting, and I think we're going to see much more of it.
Now, here obviously at the Working Forum, a lot of the focus is on what's going on in the REIT space. What trends are you seeing there?
Likewise, in the REIT space, there's a really broad range of reporting. If you look at the FTSE EPRA NAREIT index, what you see is that about 44% of the REITs, of the names in the space, are still just reporting on their policies or on their governance indicators, which, as I said, are really mostly mandated by regulation. So we're still seeing that it's early, especially in the U.S. Europe and Asia are much further ahead on this, partially because of this regulatory pressure, because of stock exchanges that are moving to comply or explain rules. So we're seeing more quantitative disclosure, for instance, from Europe and Asia Pacific region. We're seeing a lot more focus on integrated reporting, on reporting more quantitative indicators, on reporting on energy, emissions, water, and even some social indicators like training or diversity. So there's still a really big range, but I think one of the things that we've learned from our research that's interesting is that even in the US, there's a lot of reporting that is going on to kind of private reporting platforms. So whether that's GRESB or CDP or some of the third-party raters. And so what we've learned is that there's actually quite a lot of effort going into reporting that is not making it into public sustainability reports.
And how will Bloomberg's collaboration with SASB impact the industry?
Well, first, let me say that SASB is an independent 501c3 organization. So Bloomberg was one of the foundational investors in SASB, but SASB was established to advance comparable, cost-effective business material, most importantly, metrics for companies to report on their 10K. So it's really aimed at investors, and it has been a collaborative process with industry, with investors, with nonprofits in the space. And so SASB has really been doing its own thing, developing these standards. Where Bloomberg really comes in, there are a couple of places where Bloomberg comes in. Mike Bloomberg is the co-chair of SASB with Mary Shapiro, who's the former chairperson of the SEC. And so there certainly has been some leadership around ensuring that these standards reflect what investors need in terms of material information. The other way that we're collaborating with SASB, and that we hope to collaborate more with SASB, is to use the information, use the standards that SASB is developing, and the data that companies will be reporting to SASB standards, and integrate them into the Bloomberg toolkit, into the platform, so that investors can use that information more easily as a part of making their investment decisions.
And lastly, how do you think the increase in transparency will impact the usage of green bonds?
That's an interesting question, because I think it's an early market, and green bonds issuers are trying to understand exactly what they need to report. And some of them are a little bit confused by what market participants are asking for. What I would emphasize is that investors want to see more information about how the money that is being raised through green bonds is going to be deployed.
Great. Lenora, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
For more on this and other sustainability news and information, be sure to visit REIT.com.